The morning sunlight crept across a quiet suburban street, bathing everything in soft gold. Birds perched along white picket fences, their songs mixing with the faint hum of distant lawnmowers. It was the kind of morning that looked perfect, until you stepped inside the small yellow house at the corner of Maple Lane. Inside, Emma Carter carefully placed a warm towel over her mother's trembling hands. The house smelled faintly of chamomile and old books, the sunlight filtering through thin curtains that fluttered with every passing breeze. Emma, a woman in her late 50s with gentle eyes that had seen too many long nights, leaned closer to her mother. "It's okay, Mom. Just breathe slowly," she whispered. Grace Carter, frail and pale, smiled weakly. Her voice was thin but full of love. "You should rest too, sweetheart. You've been up all night again." Before Emma could answer, the tranquility shattered. The slam of a car door outside sliced through the stillness. Heavy footsteps crunched on the gravel driveway. Through the front window, Emma saw Mr. Harold Blake, their landlord, a tall man with slick hair, polished shoes, and sunglasses that reflected the bright morning sun. His stride was confident, almost arrogant, and in his hand he carried a clipboard with bold red letters stamped across the top. "Final notice." Emma's heart sank. She wiped her hands on her apron, smoothed her worn-out blouse, and opened the door before he could knock. "Mr. Blake," she started, her tone soft but anxious. "Please, I know the rent is late, but my mother's been sick again and—" But he cut her off sharply. "It's always something with you, isn't it, Emma? Last month it was hospital bills. The month before it was prescriptions. You think I run a charity here?" She looked down, ashamed. "I'll have it by next week, I promise." "Just a few more days," he scoffed, tacking the notice right onto the front door with a firm tap of his pen. "You've been promising for months," he said coldly. "I want this place cleared by the end of the week. No more excuses." Inside, a weak cough came from the bedroom. Grace's voice carried faintly. "Emma." "Who's at the door?" Harold frowned. "Still got her in there, huh? Maybe if you spent less time playing nurse, you'd have a job that pays the rent." Emma froze. Her jaw trembled, but she said nothing. He turned away, muttering to himself, "Some people just can't take responsibility." As his car engine started and faded into the distance, Emma stood there in the doorway, the bright sunlight stinging her eyes. Or maybe it was the tears she refused to let fall. Inside, Grace called softly again. Emma returned to the bedroom, forcing a smile. "Just the landlord, Mom. Nothing to worry about." She adjusted her mother's blanket, but her hands shook slightly. The room was filled with the faint beeping of a small medical monitor, a constant reminder of how fragile everything had become. Hours passed. Afternoon light poured through the window, dancing across the faded wallpaper. Emma sat beside her mother, holding her hand as if afraid to let go. Grace's breathing grew slower, shallower. Then, reaching into the bedside drawer, Grace pulled out an old yellowed envelope tied with a bit of ribbon. She placed it gently in Emma's hand. "If something happens to me," Grace whispered, her voice barely audible, "make sure he gets this." Emma looked at it. No address, no explanation. Just Harold's name, written in delicate handwriting. "Mom, what is this?" Grace smiled faintly. "He'll understand. One day." Her eyes fluttered closed. For a long moment, the house was still. Only the sound of the clock ticking echoed softly from the hall. Then she had a long drawn-out beep from the monitor. Emma froze. "Mom?" But the silence that followed told her everything. She pressed her forehead against her mother's hand, sobbing quietly as sunlight streamed across the bed, washing everything in warmth that felt unbearably cruel. Later that night, the small house was filled with neighbors, paramedics, and quiet condolences. No one noticed Emma still holding the envelope, her knuckles white. She stared at it like it might explain everything, or maybe destroy her if she opened it too soon. By morning, the street outside looked exactly the same. The trees swayed gently, the mail truck hummed down the block, and life went on, except for Emma, who stood by the doorway, her mother's favorite shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Then came the sound again, that familiar engine, that same confident slam of a car door. Harold was back, sitting in his car across the street, checking his watch impatiently. He saw the ambulance pulling away from Emma's driveway and smirked. "Finally moving out, huh?" he muttered, completely unaware that inside that small house, a single envelope was about to change everything he thought he knew. But what was inside that envelope? And why had Grace, the woman he mocked, left it for him of all people. The truth waiting inside would shake Harold to his core and reveal a connection he never imagined existed. If you believe compassion should always come before judgment, take a moment to like this video and share it, so more people remember that kindness still matters. The morning sun spread across Maple Lane like liquid gold, glinting off windshields and freshly watered lawns. The small yellow house at the end of the street stood quiet now, its windows closed, curtains drawn, and the faint scent of lavender still lingering in the air. Birds perched on the porch railing, chirping, unaware that the heart of the home they once serenaded was now gone. Harold Blake stepped out of his sleek silver car, keys jingling confidently in his hand. His polished shoes clicked against the walkway as he approached the front door, sunglasses reflecting the same house he had once looked down upon. A smirk crept across his face. Finally, he muttered, "Someone who can actually afford this place." He swung the door open, stepping into a silence that felt heavier than he expected. Dust motes floated in the morning light, swirling in golden beams cutting through the empty rooms. Everything was neat, too neat, as if someone had tried to leave quietly, respectfully, even after being forced out. Harold moved from room to room, tapping his pen against the clipboard, already calculating how much more rent he could charge the next tenant. But as he entered the kitchen, something stopped him. There, on the small wooden table near the window, sat a white envelope. It was the only thing left in the entire house. Across the front, in elegant, trembling handwriting, it read, "For Mr. Blake and from Grace Carter." His brow furrowed. "Her?" he scoffed softly. For a moment he considered tossing it aside, but something about the care in the handwriting, the steady curve of the letters, made him pause. He slid a chair back, sat down, and tore it open. A folded letter slipped out, along with a faded photograph. Edges worn, colors soft with time. Harold picked it up, and his confident smirk slowly vanished. In the photo, a young boy and girl sat on a park bench. The boy's face was unmistakable. Messy hair, a small scar near his brow. It was him. The words in the letter blurred as his eyes darted from the paper to the photo and back again. Then, in that quiet, sunlit kitchen, he began to read aloud in a trembling whisper. "You may not remember me, Harold, but I always remembered you. Years ago, when you were at the St. Mary's orphanage, I was your nurse. You used to sit by the window every morning, waiting for someone who never came. You told me once that when you grew up, you'd build homes so people would never feel unwanted. I hope you still can." For a long time, Harold didn't move. The letter slipped from his hands onto the table. The sunlight that once felt warm now burned his skin with guilt. He leaned back in the chair, staring blankly at the ceiling as old memories flooded in. The orphanage walls, the sound of children laughing in the courtyard, and a kind woman who always made sure he ate even when there wasn't enough food for everyone else. He could still hear her voice. "You'll do good things one day, Harold. Just don't let the world make you cold." But he had let it. Somewhere between success and pride, he'd forgotten where he came from. Then, as he stood to leave, something else caught his eye, a small folded receipt on the counter. It was for a charity donation, made just 2 weeks before Grace passed away. His eyes scanned the note beneath it. Paid by Grace Carter on behalf of Emma Carter, to support rent relief for struggling families. Harold froze. Grace, the same woman he mocked, the same woman he evicted, had been quietly helping other tenants behind his back. Using her own hospital money, his breath hitched. He stepped back, clutching the photo in one hand, the letter in the other. The confident landlord was gone. What remained was a man staring at his reflection in the dusty window, and seeing, for the first time, the orphan boy who once promised to build homes, not take them away. Days passed, but the guilt didn't fade. The letter haunted him. Every morning he'd pick it up again, read it once more, as if trying to atone for years of indifference. Then, one sunny afternoon, Harold parked outside a small thrift store on the other side of town. Through the open door he saw Emma sorting through her mother's belongings. The same shawl, the same framed photo of Grace smiling by the garden. She looked smaller now, lonelier, but there was peace in her face too. The kind that comes after tears have run dry. Harold hesitated by the doorway, clutching the envelope. His voice was softer than it had ever been. "Miss Carter?" She turned, startled. "Mr. Blake?" He took a deep breath and stepped closer, removing his sunglasses. His eyes were red, not from the sun, but from something deeper. Your mother, she was the kindest person I ever knew, he said quietly. And I never even realized it. Emma's lips trembled. She always spoke kindly of you. Even after, he interrupted gently, shaking his head. I don't deserve that. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. The same letter, now neatly refolded, along with a check and a signed note. This is your full deposit back, doubled. And this, he said, placing the letter in her hands, belongs with you. She reminded me what home really means. For a long moment, neither spoke. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting golden patterns across the floor. Emma clutched the envelope to her chest, tears glistening in her eyes. Harold turned to leave but stopped at the door, looking back once more. The camera pans wide, the little yellow house glowing softly in the distance, curtains swaying in the afternoon breeze. The street hums with quiet life again, and as Harold walks away, the narrator's voice lingers. Sometimes, the people we look down upon are the very ones who once lifted us up. What would you do if you found out the person you judged once helped you in the past? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And remember, kindness always finds its way back.